family. Welcome back to Dark Woke, your direct link to all things politics, comedy, and culture. I am your host, Janaya Future Khan, champ yapper and frequent nuisance in the activist and comedy world. Let's get dialed in. But just before we jump, Dark Woke is a self-funded, self-produced show. We're on Patreon/Dark Woke. I am so grateful for all the support and for you just taking the time to listen. I will never move again. I'm going to live in a box. That's all I want. I will never do this again. You should have seen me flipping a mattress, wrapping it in plastic wrap by myself like I was some sort of CrossFit loser. Why did I think that I could just wrap everything in plastic and put it like by myself? I'm a little guy. Who told me that I could do this? But I know that there's got to be several of you out there, several at least, who also overestimate your own abilities. Like, I don't want to live anywhere. Actually, I don't want to live. That's what moving does to you. You're just like, you know what? I'm good. I've seen many things. I've done many things, and I think I'm done now. I'm done. I've done many things is now turned into I'm done. No, I'm not done. I'm not done. This is kind of exactly what needed to happen at the right time. I don't know if moving is ever a good feeling though. Where's the science for that? Make the robots and AI figure that shit out. Like we could just be focusing on art and music and development and making technology be harmonious with nature. But no. We're like, no, we'll just use AI to further ostracize and alienate the working class from quality of life. That's what we'll do. And then we'll give you things that will erase jobs, that will regurgitate your work, but more poorly and with no soul or heart into it. And don't worry though, because you could always fuck them. That's evolution. All right. I've bitched and moaned enough. Why don't I talk about somebody who does it so much better than I do? And that individual is Donald Trump. This actually really makes me laugh. I have to pull this up. This is actually too good not to pull up. Okay, so apparently Donald Trump is now there's a picture of him, a painting hanging up in Colorado State Capitol, right? So there's a picture of Donald Trump. It's a painting and it's in Colorado State Capitol. And he doesn't like it. He's really pissed off about it. And, I had to figure out why, because that's exactly the news that I care about. So I was just like, why? Like, what happened with it? I'm going to pull it up right now, but don't worry. I'm going to read you the caption because it's actually perfect. Like, you've got to see this if you're on YouTube. If you're not, just look it up. Oh gosh. He looks like a hamster that has made off with all the nuts, just like in his cheeks. He's off. He's off. He's running. He's going. He's in the hamster ball. He's out of there. He's full of nuts. He's nutty. He's out of there. Okay, wait. No, I got to read this to you. This is what he wrote on Truth Social. Nobody likes a bad picture or painting of themselves, but the one in Colorado in the state capitol put up by the governor, along with all the other presidents, was purposefully distorted to a level that even I perhaps have never seen before. The way that this guy writes, the drama, honestly, him and like Virginia Woolf, I think would really get along. Like the drama, every pause that I made, like I'm doing right now, that was a comma. His purpose was purposefully distorted to a level that even I perhaps have never seen before. Honestly, we've all seen that ugly photo of ourselves. Truly. Shocking times. This guy was great for reality TV, horrible as a president. Anyway, it goes on. The artist also did President Obama, and he looks wonderful. But the one on me is truly the worst. She must have lost her talent as she got older. In any event, I would much prefer not having a picture than having this one, but many people from Colorado have called and written to complain. He had to insult her. I'm like, nigga, maybe this is just how you look to her. Maybe that's how you look to a lot of us, sir. A lot of us, sir. A lot of us. You know? You need to get off that MJ because just because you lost a lot of mass in the cheeks, it's life. It's life. Anyhow, he goes on to say, in fact, they're actually angry about it. There's an exclamation mark. There's an exclamation mark. I am speaking on their behalf to the radical left governor, Jared Polis, who is extremely weak on crime, in particular with respect to Tren de Aragua, which practically took over Aurora. Don't worry. We saved it to take it down. Jared should be ashamed of himself. This is obviously a reference to the long dismissed idea that there's some sort of gangs in Colorado taking over. But he's so bitchy. He's such a fucking queen. I really do appreciate it. Okay. So I got to tell you about this. Okay. So, I do my little deep dives online. I think about narrative arcs and all the things. But as you know, when a headline catches my attention, I got to look. I got to know. I got to know what it is. I got to know what they're talking about. So The Atlantic does what it does. And occasionally they'll get my attention because I feel like the writing quality has gone down. Did everybody go to Substack? Is that what happened? Did everybody just leave and go to Substack? Okay. Anywho, so I'm like combing the internet and this that says like, this is the one word to describe Donald Trump. And I'm like, yeah, bitch. That's the word. That's got to be the word. He's bitch. He's a bitch. Is there anything else to say about that? So I had to look. It's just, here we go. One word describes Trump. I'm going to save you some time. I'm going to save us all some time because I had to read a very long, very, very, very dense article to get to a word that was not bitch, which was very confusing to me considering it's clearly the most apt one. Anyway, the answer was patrimonialism. Okay. So that annoyed me because I don't care. But, the curiosity in me, right? Because I was like, oh, great. Yeah. Trump is capitalizing on everybody's, need for a dad in the manosphere or whatever, right? But the thinker in me, damn it, wouldn't shut the hell up. So I started to read it and then somebody put time to write this. Okay. So I was like, what does this author see as different from, patriarchy or authoritarianism? Like what makes this patrimonialism so distinct, right? Well, interestingly enough, okay, so patrimonialism is distinguished by running the state as if it were the leader's personal property or family business. So then I was like, okay, you've got my attention now. Okay. I'm reading, Jonathan. I'm reading your article. You've got my attention. So it's like basically like a gangster type, think of like a mob shit, right? So like Putin in this article, the author's making the case that Putin is most like this, but I go deeper, right? This is where it gets fucking good. And then I'm going to play you this clip that's going to bring it all home. I mean, right? Information is the shit. God, I'm such a nerd. Okay. This is what the article says. Patrimonialism's antithesis is not democracy. It is bureaucracy, or more precisely, bureaucratic proceduralism. Okay? Classic authoritarianism, the sort seen in like Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, whatever, it's often heavily bureaucratized, right? When authoritarians take power, they consolidate their rule by creating structures such as you got your little secret police, you got your propaganda agencies, right? You got your special military units. These guys do the bidding of the big guys, right? It's like this like old school, legitimate authoritarian power. Think of 1984, okay? Think of 1984 Orwell. Think of that. You know, in that work, you had Oceana's Ministries of Truth, right? With capital T, that was propaganda. Peace with a capital P, and that was war. And love, right? Which was state security. And these are the regime's like most characteristic and obviously scary features. But interestingly enough, patrimonialism is suspicious of bureaucracy, right? So think of every time you've heard like one of the more articulate Trump voters, like I'm not talking about the manosphere guys, okay? Occasionally, you'll run across somebody who doesn't do a lot of deep thinking, but is able to articulate some of the things that they think, and you know why they chose the action they chose. Those people tend to speak to the fact that you know they nothing's changed. They don't make money. There's corruption, all that stuff. There's what they don't know that they're talking about in some way, and what I didn't think that they were talking about in some way was bureaucracy. But it's true, right? There's a way in which the system is actually completely inaccessible depending on where you're born into it, right? Like, okay, I grew up in public housing and neither of my parents were able to work for lots of different reasons. My father. Unfortunately, that is something I'm going to have to be saying all the time. That my father. Immigrant guy, you know, Trinidadian, West Indian Trini, could not consistently get work and had a lot of issues with alcoholism, blah, blah, blah. My mom had a lot of really intense mental and physical struggles. She had physical disabilities and a lot of like mental health struggles and mental illness. And, you know, so we grew up in public housing. So I didn't understand what taxes were. Nobody paid them. You know what I mean? But when things changed, like when Mike Harris became the premier of Ontario, which is your equivalent of a governor here, and the Canadians will know what I'm talking about, especially, he cut all these food programs, all these social service programs, and you know, it was devastating. So I didn't understand that is a component of bureaucracy for a lot of us, right? You know, the system itself is like incoherent a lot of the times, and it's jumbled and it's designed that way. It's like it's designed to justify itself. And if you know how to navigate that, you will do well. You will do well if you know how to navigate that. If you know how to navigate bureaucracy and wealthy families, particularly generational wealth. I'm not even talking about new money, because new money is going to make a lot of mistakes. New money is still a couple of paychecks out from bottoming under, but generational wealth. Oh yeah. They know exactly where to hide their money. They know exactly how to do the tax breaks. That's pretty much everybody in Congress that is a senator, minus the handful of folks we've represented. So this article really started to open my mind up to what some of that appeal is and how he talks about bureaucracy. And right now we're seeing the dangers, of course, of dismantling the system. So if traditional authoritarianism, right, came with the introduction of an entire sort of, it actually expanded out the state apparatus to do its bidding. Even as it dismantled democratic infrastructure, this dismantles it all. But let me just play this clip right quick. So I want to really bring home what I mean when I say this guy got it, and it was a huge part of his appeal. So we're gonna do this Inception sort of thing because, you know, like, I don't know what the copyright stuff is, so it's going to be like an opinion of an opinion inside of an opinion. But so we'll go back. Dave Chappelle. This is a clip of Dave Chappelle talking, but he's talking about Donald Trump, and then you'll hear Donald Trump talk as well. But this clip has always been one of my favorite clips. And then when I was listening to this, my brain started firing off. Okay, here we go. This is so good.
I've never seen a white male billionaire screaming at the top of his lungs, this whole system is rigged. And the moderator said, well, Mr. Trump, if in fact the system is rigged, what would be your evidence? Remember what he said, bro? He said,
I absolutely used it, and so did Warren Buffett, and so did George Soros, and so did many of the other people that Hillary is getting money from.
No one ever heard someone say something that true. And then Hillary Clinton tried to punch him in the taxes. She said, this man doesn't pay his taxes. He shot right back.
See, I understand the tax code better than anybody that's ever run for president, and it's extremely complex.
And then he said,
she complains that Donald Trump took advantage of the tax code. Well, why didn't she change it? Why didn't you change it when you were...
Ooh, that right there. Then why didn't you change it? Why didn't you change it when you were in power? And I forgot about how articulate this guy was at a certain point in time. It's why he won then. And fast forward to now and think about his talking points leading up to it. I mean, did the Dems fumble the bag? Absolutely, right? But we all know they got a bag to fumble. That's the fucking problem. He was talking that talk. Let me finish this out right quick.
You were a senator. The reason you didn't is that all your friends take the same advantage that I do. Hillary Clinton has friends that want all of these provisions.
And with that, my friends, the star was born.
I feel like they have to play that music to avoid, because I'm like, why does everything sound like that these days? It's got to be a thing. Now, before I get into it, I wanted to find more, right? Because I'm a nerd. More information. Like, why would this work here, but not necessarily somebody else, somewhere else? What would it take? What would it take to break out of poverty for people who don't know how to navigate the system of bureaucracy? And again, it's ineligible. Like, intelligible, unintelligible. Jesus. This is what happens when I record too late. I get like, I'm like, you should, oh my gosh, I just caught myself. You'll see it if you watch it on the video. I'm like scratching my wrist, but I was scratching my wrist in a way that was just a little bit unhinged. Okay, so I do some more. Is it just me or is it hot in here? I'm not being dramatic. No, Sula woke up and she's like low-key panting. I think I'm like, she's staring at me again. First of all, I'm disturbing her sleep, but I also think that I'm not imagining this. Like, my veins are popping. I think it got warm in here because of my stuff. But okay, that's irrelevant. Listen, so I find this thing, and this was made in 2022, right? And the source is the OECO, okay? I'm just gonna, because I can't remember what the acronym is. I should have written that out, OECO. This doesn't seem right. Wait, hold on. Yeah, no, this doesn't seem right. I'm going to find the source because I did verify this already, but it's quite good. I'm going to find the source, but before that, let me just pull this up because I think it's really important to see. And hopefully you will be able to see it if you're watching the video. But essentially, right, hours of work needed to escape poverty. Okay, so this is, there's a graph that's in front of me, and it shows the weekly hours a single person receiving benefits must work at minimum wage to escape poverty. So if you're somebody who wasn't born understanding how to navigate this system and, you know, whatever, but you're receiving, the weekly hours a single person receiving benefits must work at minimum wage to escape poverty. Okay, in Japan, 14 hours. If you are somebody who is a single person, right, and you're receiving benefits, you have to work 14 hours at minimum wage to escape poverty, right? In the UK, it's 23 hours. France, 25 hours, right? Go to some of the other ones. You got Ireland at 33. Okay. You've got Poland at 35, Netherlands at 36, Lithuania and Slovenia at 40 and 42. Okay. Canada is at 44, Estonia, 51. The United States, if you're in the United States, the weekly hours a single person receiving benefits must work at minimum wage to escape poverty is 80 hours. You would need to do 80 hours a week to escape poverty. And as you know, once you start working a certain set of hours, you actually lose your benefits. They punish you for actually doing well. You are not supported in doing well. You are punished for doing well. So when you get somebody who's out there talking that talk, who at the very least is not pretending, he's not pretending like this shit isn't happening, right? I don't know. This stuff, it really gets to you after a while when you're like, yeah, I get this. There's another thing called Statista, right? Percentage of workers paid hourly rates with earnings at or below the minimum wage in the United States in 2023 by state, right? So blah, 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 blah. You do some of this research, whatever, and you realize that we're in single digits in terms of percentages of Americans who receive like a reasonable minimum wage. Again, though, the poverty line is calculated as 50% of the median disposable income in the country, right? So that was from the graph. So then when you go back to this idea of patrimonialism, right? That its key feature is being suspicious of bureaucracies, right? My next question is, well, who ultimately gets served by this, right? Do people win? No. Like we already know. It was a hopeful question that I had. But I'm going to play something that is on a different vibe. But first, I do want to say, though, like, to be clear, and you get deeper into the article, it is just corrupt by definition because it's about exploitation specifically for gain, personal, political, financial. That's why it's sort of like the family mob shit. And everybody who is around him is going to be experiencing some kind of gilded age from this type of crony capitalism. And we're absolutely seeing that. They are all selling fucking merch. It's wild. We went through all the commercials, like the fucking commercials. I don't want to watch RFK eat fries. I just felt so bad for them, the fries. Anyway, I want to move into, so we're talking about a couple of things, and some of this shit's really going to slap. But I want to play this clip real quick. Last week, we spent a fair amount of time talking about the need for coalitions, the need for people not getting shit right, and then, figuring out what to do with them anyway. And, I mentioned too that no other land was having a really hard time because we were crushing them. They were getting crushed from both sides. They were getting crushed. That's the documentary that features Palestinians in West Bank, and of course, and what they're dealing with the settlers there. And it also had an Israeli voice in it, which apparently made the entire thing fucking null and void. So they have the entire Zionist lobby after them. But the American left, right, the pro-Palestine American left, is just kicking the shit out of it, not supporting it because it has this Israeli voice. And, you know, I have very strong feelings about that, which I shared in that episode. You can go ahead and check it out. But in that, we were talking about Resolute, which is a shoe company that is made by Palestinian women, and the need to sort of separate that from the film. And one of the people, and I suggested that they look to very specific key, I'm using air quotes here, influencers to not just wear the shoes, but sort of champion the cause and help in that reframe. Because one thing that I know for a fact is that for all these people yapping online, if they're, they'll go to a concert or whatever, and if their folks are saying this is the way, they're not going to protest them in the same way. They're more amenable, if that makes sense. So I want to just play this clip of Malcolm Moore. And Malcolm Moore is, you know what? This is me bookmarking the article I trashed. I only trashed it because I wanted to see Donald Trump is a bitch written in an article in The Atlantic. I wrote it in a Google Doc. You know what I mean? It's fine. It's totally fine. But anyway, Israel has broken its last ceasefire. I mean, they never had any intention of seeing it through. It's just disgusting. So Malcolm Moore delivered a speech at the People's Forum NYC, right, at Ethical NYC. And this, of course, to help get Mahmoud Khalil out of prison. He's being held in a detention center. I read the statement that he put out in the last episode. But I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to tell you a story. Because it's story time, my little nignogs. Let's go. But get fired up. Get a little fired up because, he's talking that talk, and I think we can all, we need to hear more. We need to hear more of this.
Was not okay. I started learning about the history of the occupation, the political ideology of Zionism, Israeli settlers of the West Bank. I was watching videos coming out of Gaza and crying with friends. I started learning about how colonization, capitalism, and white supremacy need each other to exist and how they were at the root of the Nakba. Just
ignore the slam poetry 1998 tone that he's reading everything in. It's from an era. Every time I hear it, I'm sorry. I get there's a brain aneurysm in development. I'm like, hey, not right now. There's something important is happening. And now look at me. I'm now imposing my own biases onto you, the people. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Because he's saying something important. Okay, sorry. I struggled to hear it because of the way he was reading it. I pulled it back a little bit. I'll shut up. I'll be good. I'll behave myself. But if there were at least 50 of you that also were like, no, I feel vindicated.
We need each other to exist and how they were at the root of the Nakba 76 years ago that never ended for the people of Palestine. I was taking it all in and I was silent. I was scared. I was thinking about myself. I didn't want to be labeled anti-Semitic. I didn't want to get canceled and lose my career. I didn't want to lose fans. I didn't want to offend anyone. But at a certain point, I couldn't believe those voices anymore. My heart had just enough cracks in it that the light of Palestinian resistance, struggle, and unwavering faith cracked it open. I was experiencing what happens when the internal pain from being silent outweighs the risk of speaking up in moments of injustice. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you learn the real history, you can't unlearn it. Once you get past the media and the White House focusing solely on October 7th, once you begin to look at October 6th, 5th, 4th, and the 75 years before of oppression and displacement, that's when the truth opens up. And once you look under the hood and realize our government officials are bought and paid for by the Israel lobby, you can't look at our so-called democracy the same way. Once you understand that our tax dollars are funding a genocide that we are watching in real time in the palm of our hands, I believe it is our moral obligation to adamantly protest the atrocities we are witnessing and funding, or we are complicit.
Speak, white boy. Very, very important. That there is some level of risk for anyone who speaks out about Palestine on some level, with anyone with a platform. Anyone with a platform that suddenly develops out of that, as we saw with Khalil. You are potentially in some kind of danger. So, you know, what was my feeling watching that? I want to take you back to 2016. And this is before Donald Trump was announced as the winner. Okay. This was earlier in the year. And in August. And the movement, when I say the movement, think like the movement for Black Lives. So that includes Black Lives Matter. Obviously, M4BL was its own entity under that umbrella. BYP 100, all these things. But for Black Lives Matter specifically, it was a very difficult time. To be part of the movement at that time was, like I think I mentioned, you could get kicked out of housing. If they found out, you could lose your job. Everybody hated us. Like every fucking body hated us. It was so embarrassing for them because we were adorable. But, no, everybody fucking hated us. Like, I mean, we're getting trashed. Oprah was talking about how we didn't have no leadership. Like, we were a bunch of Black queer people, led by women and trans people. There's a lot of straight Black men rejected us. The old guard found us repulsive. So even in and around the Black community, there was just not love. Like All Lives Matter was a big thing. I remember like at the time, like Leanne LaHavas was like one of my favorite artists, one of my favorite musical artists. And she was like, just all lives matter. And I was like, bitch, what? What is going on? So this was a very, very different time. And not a lot of people on the left wouldn't fuck with us either, just because they didn't want to do race stuff. They wanted to do gender stuff. And Macklemore was one of the few artists, because there were a few people who like behind the scenes kind of tried, like, a little Marlon Brando in this shit. So, he's really been an early supporter of unpopular movement. So this isn't just some sudden shift for Macklemore. He was in communication with a lot of different, not a lot, but a few key people who are BLM leadership. And so here we are, and we're just finally getting some momentum. And sorry, I'm going to get a little bit inarticulate here. This was like a really difficult moment. Some of you might have heard the name Corinne Gaines before. And she was a 23-year-old Black woman, mother of two, hairstylist. Both of the children were young. One was a 5-year-old, right? And August 1st, 2016, Corinne Gaines goes on Facebook Live. And she tells the world that there are cops outside of her house, outside of her apartment door, that are demanding entry, and because of some outstanding parking warrants or some shit like that. It was warrant, it was for like parking tickets. It was something ridiculous. And she was armed, and she warned them multiple times, right? She warned them multiple times. And this is in Baltimore County. She warned them multiple times. I'm armed. I do not give you permission to enter my home. You know, on the live, she said they threatened to kill her. And, you know, this negotiate, like, so they went back and forth with each other for 6 hours, right? And her 5-year-old was in the apartment with her at the time. Then the live cuts out, and it turns out that the police had contacted Facebook, and Meta turned the live off. And in that time that they turned the live off, police broke into her home and murdered her in front of her 5-year-old son. They say she threatened to kill them. Back in 2016, I watched the live. I didn't see that. She was like, if you enter this house, I may be forced to kill you. You know, that was maybe the most, but again, it was just don't enter the house. Do not enter the house. They had arrived in full SWAT gear. Like, imagine cops arriving in full fucking SWAT gear for some outstanding parking warrants. And we were already having a lot of difficulty getting traction for murders when police murder black folks, but it was especially and is especially difficult when it's women. When a black woman is murdered by the cops, it very rarely makes a story. And I think I'm sharing this now, and I might have, I can never remember what I say these days, you know, 'cause I've just been yapping. You know, it feels like forever with you all about, you know, life, but it really is fairly new. And I do want to take advantage of like this when we're still, you know, on the earlier side, so that the next time these kinds of things come up, it can be across, you know, the table from whoever the subject might be. But this is not something I'm ashamed of, and I don't think anybody should be ashamed of what I'm about to say. So, you know, Corin Gaines became part of the list, right, of names now that we said. And, you know, when these murders would happen, we would typically pay, you know, figure out a way to support funeral expenses, get in touch with the family, see what kinds of support we could offer. If they, you know, if they wanted to be involved on some level, that would happen. But, you know, mainly we were just there as some kind of support. And the case with Corin Gaines was really difficult because everyone loves the image of like Malcolm X standing at the window, right? And today, fast forward all the way, like, oh, you know, Luigi Mangione. I mean, I fucking love him. So don't think for a moment I'll despair my Mangione. You know, I love me some Malcolm too. But with Corin Gaines, it was like, well, she was armed. We don't know if we can, because she was armed. And as per usual, right, we hit up Macklemore. You know, would you say something on behalf of Corin Gaines? And he was like, and he'd been vocal on some level about Black Lives Matter and you know, on a community level, right? Like, like his career was all right, but on like a community level. But this was a case we needed help with because it was such a grave injustice and had such larger implications around censorship. She was murdered in front of her son. She was murdered for like no fucking reason at all. She was in a standoff for 6 hours. You know, where she was like communicating with them and everything, but they came in SWAT and riot regalia. And so when we asked them, you know, would you help? He said, you know, but wasn't she armed? And that took a lot of us by surprise. He didn't feel like it was something he could do. And so we asked if he would help with some of her funeral expenses. And he didn't feel like that was something that he could do. And, you know, on a personal level, this has nothing to do with Malcolm Moore. But on a personal level, something broke inside of me. I remember Zora Neale Hurston said, and something fell off the shelf inside of me at that time, where I felt, right. And then you got Trump coming and our shit's falling apart because nobody can agree. And I'm just like, why can't we do all of it? Why can't we do all of it? Like, for all the people who are like, fuck the Dems, da, 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 it's like, great. Like, if you don't fuck with electoral justice work, that's great. But like, then do the other work, do organizing work. But they never do they? They're never like, yeah, you guys do that, and then we'll focus on this, and maybe we'll meet somewhere in the middle. No, it's never about that. And it was the same thing with those folks. It was just like, there just seemed to be, and of course we'd been infiltrated, and it was just, but I was in this moment where I was like, they don't, like, nobody will ever care. Nothing that, and you know, I just. And I still do it. I train, you know, I train, like, in terms of vocab and, you know, all this shit. And I watch speeches and I study cadence and rhetoric and all these things, like, you know, like all the other weird boys on, you know, my train, I guess, my train is just like speeches, right? So I don't care if it's Churchill or JFK or whoever. I study everybody. Any speech I can study, I'll do it. And I believe that if I could just find the way to say the thing, then I could make people care. I could make people care that this black woman had been murdered in front of her son. And it was like a moment when I realized that those words were never going to exist. And I remember that. I remember that moment. I really remember that moment, because it was like, even the people that you could count on, you couldn't. And I say that not to shame Malcolm, or no, I think that, to me, this is an indication of growth, right? This is somebody that I could, and that we all could and should think about building with in the future. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to change your mind. He talks about it in the thing, you know, but it made it clear to me in that moment, right, that there was a type of litmus test, something that very immediately made me understand where somebody stood and what their politics were. And it's generally speaking, it's how they treat women, but on a broader scale, like on a more specific scale, how they treat black women. Do you care about black women? Do you think about black women? Do you know black women? Because that, and if you look at the traits across the manosphere, that's what you're getting. It's hatred of women, just point blank, period. It's very intense, and it's not always obvious. You know, you get these OnlyFans girls where they just get humiliated for 2 hours. You get black guys who say that they'll never in their life date a black woman, that they're fucking disgusting, and all these other shit. You know, but it's endless. But I really believe in people's ability to, like, change and evolve and grow. I've also come to understand that there aren't any singular set of words that are going to change anybody's mind about anything. That doesn't stop me from trying. Like, neither, you know, you know this, there's no book out there where you're like, I got it, now I'm a good person. It's like, no, I'm still shit. And I've read every book I could think of, and I'm still a shitty human being. You know, but I'm still going to try. And I'm going to keep trying, because when we fucking don't, right? When we don't try, this is what we get. This is a clip. Like, what are the actual impacts of the manosphere, right? So we're talking about redemption. We're talking about change. Thank you for indulging my little story. It was just interesting, because while I was listening to him talk, I thought to myself, am I still angry about this? Is this something, could I build a coalition? If I was pressed, you know, could I build a coalition with this man? Knowing how he completely abandoned the cause the second that it got too nuanced. Like I remember I was with two other people when his text came in, And it was like, you know, oh, well, she was armed, wasn't she? And I was like, I'm like, where do you even start to explain how that is not the fucking thing? But I truly, truly believe in growth, and I truly believe in redemption. And I don't necessarily even know that this guy, you know, he might not even need it. Maybe I'm not the person. But it was clear to me because it was a challenge, right? I was just like, okay, do I play this clip? Do I play this clip? And I was like, you know, if I do, then I need to be honest with you about my thoughts on it. And because that's the commitment I've made. But it made me think, you know, and I actually have like a million stories. I was going to say a trillion, but that's actually an exaggeration of situations like this, you know, where there are these parts of the movement and with interactions with these like pretty significant cultural figures that, you know, you just wouldn't know otherwise. But I'm glad that he's talking about Palestine, and I'm glad that he's done it fearlessly. And I hope that was a moment of growth. I want to play this now because when we don't yap, right, we get this. This is a clip of Sneako, who is like think of him like a lesser version of Andrew Tate. Super transphobic, super gross. The Tate brothers are now back in Romania. They did their whole little fucking tour. We closed it off last week with Kim taking her child away from Ye because he was about to meet the Tate brothers. This is a clip that shows the real world impact of guys like this online. It's pretty jarring. I mean, no, you're not going to be traumatized or some shit. You're just going to get pissed. It's super short though. So for those who are in the audio only, this is a guy, some manosphere guy with his phone out, and there's a bunch of kids, and you can hear that they're children immediately, so you'll understand exactly what's going on.
Did you take? Fuck the woman, fuck the woman. What?
He goes, fuck the women, and goes to like, puts his hand up to like dap him, you know? And then Sneako looks at the camera and he's like, what? But the kid doesn't back down. So then the other one pipes up.
No, wait.
Sneako.
We love women. We love women.
But not like transgenders.
Yes, sir. We love everybody.
We love women, but not transgenders. We right? And he's looking at him expectantly. He's like, what's the thing that's going to make the connection? Because I heard what you said, so I'm trying to make the connection right now. And then you almost heard some other kids say, and gay people. So let me just pull it back a little bit more, right? Start it again.
Love everybody. No.
All gays should die.
All gays should die. This is like, this kid's like fucking 9 or some shit. Maybe 11 max. I don't know. I can't tell. But he's got to be like 10 and below, right? All gays should die. All gays should die. And there's 3 of them, and this is what they're talking about, and this is how they're talking about it.
Yeah, merch, preach. What have I done?
Can I get in the video? Fucking talk.
Can I get in the video? Yeah. Talk to him.
Yo, what's up?
Yeah. That's what happens. That's what happens, right? What have I done? It's all a fucking joke. These are kids. These are like, this is what makes me so mad. This is what makes me so mad about this entire, you know, we're all just being gaslit. And is there a stronger term? Smart people who are listening to this shit, is there a stronger term than gaslit? Is that the one, or can I say something corny, like something about gaslit, but then it's like the whole house is full of gas and you light the fucking match and the whole thing? But it's bad. It's bad in these streets. While there's still data going on and being sort of uncovered about what the F happened, what the FERC happened during this election time. Some new information has come out that I think is pretty useful. So Eric Levitz, who is like, I guess like one of these like senior correspondent types on Fox, right? He talked to David Shore. So this is the director of Blue Rose Research, who did testing for Future Forward, and that's the largest PAC supporting Harris. So a few weeks ago, we talked about some of the data that came out of that. And of course, we know that there was not a cohesive strategy over there, blah, 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 blah. But Blue Rose has one of the largest data sets of any sort of left-leaning organization at all. Like, they conducted 26 million voter interviews in 2024. So when you cite something from there, you're actually getting a much more accurate picture of what's going on than you might in others, which, you know, when they do their little pocket tests. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so where are we going with this, right? So Shore is, like, he might be considered the most influential data scientist in the Democratic Party. But it's like, nigga, fix it, but whatever. So Eric asked this question. U.S. voters got their news from TikTok, right? They were much more likely... so any U.S. voters who got their news from TikTok were much more likely to swing to the GOP than other voters. So that's a new set of information. So if you got so we know people are getting their information on social media, but if you got your information, you got your news specifically from TikTok, you are more likely to swing to the GOP than other voters, even after controlling for demographics, right? So that means, well, you might say, well, of course, but you have these types of people, you know, white boys around this age would, no. That is even after controlling for data. So like, he's asked, why do you think that is? This is Shore's response. I think people can debate how much of this is the nature of the algorithm versus the strategic choices that the party's made. A lot of people argue that maybe TikTok just helps negative content get promoted, and that's naturally bad for whoever's the incumbent. But TikTok is also really different from social media that came before. Other social media sites are very dependent on what people call the follower graph. If you look on Instagram Reels, for example, the correlation between how many views a video gets and how many followers the creator has is extremely high, right? Which we know is true. Like, if you have a larger following on Instagram, the likelihood of you getting a larger subset of people watching your shit, the views, you know, it's like, yeah, 1 + 1 = 2. And on TikTok, it's quite a bit lower than any other platform, right? And the reason is TikTok uses machine learning to analyze a video and makes a good guess about whether it will be appealing. This is why people say, like, damn, the TikTok algo is like right in my head. It's very sophisticated, whatever. It's because it actually is. So they can make a good guess, right? The TikTok's algorithm, the machine, analyzes the video, right? And makes a good guess of whether or not it will be appealing before the video is shown to anyone. So even while you're in the process of editing, it's taking it in. It's taking it in. So if your video is likely to be engaging, it can get wide distribution even if you don't have a following. And that has been, there's a way to look at it, which is like, that's democratizing. So Shore continues, we used to live in a world where in order to get your message out there, you had to get people who write really well to absorb your message and put it out. And now we're in a world where anyone can make a video. And if that video is appealing, it'll get out there. Come on, Shore, get to the part where you talk about what, but like, there's something here that was like annoying me. And it's, I'm in going through it, I'm revisiting that part, which is what makes the right so good, right? Like, we know that the videos, we know that the algos, you know, likes certain things that it predicts to be appealing, right? We also know that the algo prefers things that are more polarizing, right? Because it knows it'll play. But why does their propaganda play so much better? Like, you know, we could look at Twitter. Twitter is so overwhelmingly run by the right. There's a graph. It's bananas. Like Elon Musk, it looks like the fucking sun. He's just like this red sun in the graph. And then there's like a sea of red. And then you got like maybe 2 blue dots. And that's just like 2 guys I already follow. And they're not even close to being as big. It's like fucking Pluto. They're like 2 dwarf planets there. Right? But what happens when you have a site that is far more democratic than other sites. So that means, right, the video's good, it's more likely to appeal to such and such. It'll go for further distribution regardless of what kind of followers you have. So why does our shit always play more poorly? That's what the fuck I want to know. So anyway, this right here is this. I think this kind of got to it, right? So we're talking about. We still live in a world where, in order to get your message out there, you had to get people who write really well to absorb your message and put it out. And now we're in a world where anyone can make a video, and if that video is appealing, it'll get out there. And this is naturally bad for the left, simply because the people who write really well, so the people who write really well, are a lot more left-wing than the overall population. One of my favorite stats on this is something that Nat Cohn put out a couple years ago. This is I bookmarked it. It's like a citation on Twitter, but it says, among white voters without a degree under age 45. So remember, we went over this last episode. Among white voters with a degree under age 85, read a book in the last year. Democrat 49, GOP 40. No book in the last year. Dem 25, GOP 67. Right. Working class white voters who read a book in the last year are much more democratic than working class white voters who haven't. So to me, we're right back where we are. I think when we do speak, I can't believe I'm saying this. It's too smart. It's too smart. And then we're not I statement people a lot of the time, which is like random. So random to say, because I know like that's all Gen Z kind of does. Not like close to millennial Gen Zs. They're like totally on the money. Gen Z, nuts. They're definitely using some I statements in a wild way. But it brings us back to the points, which is like, I think we have to sound like dummies more often. I remember when I worked at Color of Change for those 2 years, they were very clear that the mailers that go out, right? This is the Color of Change has the largest, base of any left-wing black organization online. So they do digital organizing. They have like millions of people that they can access at a moment's notice, right? So part of how they do that is these mailers, and we could not write over a 6th grade level. So we have to ask ourselves now, we know that public education is being gutted. The average person in America, and I was just like, take this with a grain of salt, right? Because we just broke down demographics there, but the average people in America read 10 books a year max. 10 books a year max. That to me was a little bit heartening. But knowing what we know, how do we make ourselves more accessible? How do we make ourselves make more sense? How do we not sound so fucking smart? This is what I was taking from it, right? So now I'm going to play this clip for you of Pete Buttigieg talking about DEI, right? Forgive me for the fucking Jubilee thing. Just forgive me for the fucking Jubilee thing. But I found 2 examples that I think walk that line of being smart without losing the point or being annoying. So this is, it's a Jubilee thing, and he's contesting somebody on diversity. And again, this is not me saying, this is how we need to sound like. No, gosh, no. If I could just get up there and talk with, like, like Buttigieg, I like how we do shit, and we all got to figure out how to do shit in our own way, I guess. I was going to say some shit that was like probably homophobic. Sorry I'm like this. Anyway, I also think it's a great touchstone for how we talked about debate, right? We played a lot of debate videos and I broke it down, but this, to me, this is a good example of working off your opponent's definition, which is a very, very good fucking strategy. You'll hear it when I play it. So why don't I get to it? Screen share and boom.
DEI stands for diversity, equity, inclusion, right? So to me, we start by thinking, okay, what's the opposite of those things?
Perfect. You're asserting something that is removed completely from the current cultural discourse. One of the biggest weaknesses on the left is that we are easily manipulated by culture, like super influenced by it. Meanwhile, we used to be the generators of culture. Now we just react and respond to culture in a way that is really beneath us.
The opposite of diversity is uniformity, right? The opposite of equity is inequity. And the opposite of inclusion is exclusion. And I don't know a lot of people who think we'd be better off if our lives had more uniformity, inequity, and exclusion, right? But I think that the part of why people have questions about it that I respect is they're not sure if they're worried about fairness.
If this was Sam Cedar, and it was that white girl Nazi who is anti-immigrant, but I found out is also Canadian. Apologies, I don't know where that came from. But yeah, which is hilarious. I wish we knew that in advance, because like that would have been fucking hilarious. But I'm pretty sure you don't know who you're going to be sitting around. But anyway, you'll note that that Buttigieg is not being hotly contested as we've seen. I think he wouldn't really lose his place at all. The guy does not rattle. But I do want to point that out because this person is at least performing listening, which does change the dynamic of how he can make his points. But a big part of that is he's starting off on what they can agree with. Remember when Sam was like, what month is it? January. Okay, we can agree on something. When you can make somebody agree to something, psychologically, they are more open. They've also ceded a little bit of ground. It is a good strategy to use just generally.
Right. So to me, when you talk about some of these policies, the idea is to make sure everybody gets a seat at the table, especially if you know there have been systematic ways of keeping people from getting a seat at the table over the years, sometimes based on their race, on their religion, on their income, on their background, any number of reasons, sexuality, right? Like a lot of different reasons. And it's about making sure that what we do going forward is fair.
Yeah.
And this can be an economic issue too. You look at something like redlining. A lot of homeowners, families, would-be homeowners, especially black families, couldn't get homes in certain neighborhoods where the property value started to go up. So even if that happened to a family, 50 years ago, their kids are living with the consequences of that now. Because their family has less wealth because they were kept out of a neighborhood where property values were growing, right? And so part of it's the idea that some of these things may have started a long time ago. Maybe nobody alive today is responsible for some of the injustice that has shaped what it's like to live in this country right now. But all of us now are responsible for doing something about it.
So that's a great example of making a point that is well-rounded but not contested. This is an example. And I like these clips because they also talk about what we're talking about. So I just came across this guy. Don't vouch for him yet because I still got to do a deep dive. But I like him so far. Gary Stevenson, he's an economist. He made a fuck ton of money, which, you're going to immediately get respect from the manosphere for that. And he was into trading and all these other things. But the conclusion that he drew from that is that the game is rigged. And here we go. We're going full circle. And then I'm going to round us out on a very cool fucking story of a victory that would get overlooked, but not to us. So he makes a bunch of money and he's like, yeah, the game's rigged. And he's think about Donald Trump being like, yeah, the game's rigged. And it's rigged for me, and I fucking used it. And she won't change it because she uses it too, and so do all of her friends. So this is two guys having it out, having a little tete-a-tete, having a little debate about how things should be discussed, what story should we be telling people or men about the pursuit of like money or greatness, yada, 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 yada. Let me just hit this for you. Let's get screen share up and boom. I like this one. And then you can also hear like a bit of a back and forth.
I think the reality is, for kids from poor backgrounds, it is almost impossible to realistically get even financial security, never mind wealth.
But why do you think you could do it, I could do it, he could do it, but you don't think other people could do it?
I won every maths competition I've ever been in. You know what I mean? Since I was a little kid, I was one of the top students at LSE, and I still had to win my job by cheating in the card game. You know, that's the world that we live in. I don't think that's a very replicable strategy.
What I see is most often the people who do really well financially who are young, they dropped out of school, they dropped out of university, they started learning how to do things by doing their own research. They start their own business or co-found a business. They take a very alternative path. When people sidestep that and say, okay, I'm not going to get into university debt, I'm just going to go off and actually figure out how the world works, there's actually...
I'm like seething right now. This whole like Gary V fucking thing, it's everywhere in the, like, it's everywhere in the manosphere. But under it, right, is like, oh, yeah, Zuckerberg dropped out of fucking university, da, 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 da. And I'm not all for the whole debt structure and everything else, and the academic industrial complex as a whole pisses me off. But there is a type of antagonism towards expertise when the antagonism should really be towards bureaucracy. And this idea, of course, is that you can be a self-made man. And that's a big part of why the manosphere appeals to men, right? And when I'm bringing this up, think about what the left has that would appeal to men. Why does it appeal to you? You know what's wild? I had to think about it. I'm still thinking about it. Like, because obviously my first response is, well, it's like, it feels right. It's right. I have things now. And I come from nothing, and I have things because I worked really fucking hard, but I didn't work alone. And I owe something back to the world, but I actually, when I ask that question, okay, to you, right? What is its appeal? Do you have an immediate answer? What draws you to it? I'm still working out my answer. And I think that there's something in this about why culturally we are losing so much ground, why we don't have any pride. I thought it was just the fucking Dems, because those raggedy bitches, but it's deeper than that. We don't, and I'm not saying that, oh, because I can't, other people can't know, but it's more like I try to be on the pulse enough that if I'm struggling with something, if I am feeling something, I know I'm not the only one. And there's something, and I've looked, but there's something in, like, we're really good at being like, I believe that, people should have bread on the table. I believe that people should have homes. I believe that water is a human right. Food is, all that shit. You probably have the same thing, but like, where's the story there? Right? These guys are saying, why would you go through all this shit, come out in debt when you can be a self-made man? What is the actualized version of us on the left? What is that? Jesus? Do I become Jesus in the final stage? I don't know. But I think there's a problem there. For us on a rhetorical level, I think there's a problem for us on a cultural level. And I think I'm really like seeing that now, because we have to think about, and I like the concept of dark woke because it's at least something, it's a stance, it's unafraid, it's a reclamation, it's a challenge, but what is the actualized version of us? Who is that? What is that? Why do you identify as a person on the left? Like, what is the appeal? They have a lot of stories, and it's not like, oh, no, their stories are fucking boring or whatever. But when you hear self-made man, I can take my destiny into my own hands, right? Why wouldn't I choose that? Why wouldn't I want that? Especially if I'm somebody who had things taken from me, or that had a life that that wasn't great. I love Gary's response to this, but I want you to hear what's missing too, right?
Loads of opportunities.
Okay, so I guess we've sorted it then. All of our viewers need to do just be more entrepreneurial. It's as simple as that. More entrepreneurial, start a business. Listen, my friends can't feed their kids, okay?
Yeah.
And if it was as simple as going out and being an entrepreneur, I can bet you they would do it. I can bet you they would do it. I'm sick of multimillionaires telling kids who can't afford to turn the heating on, you just need to be more entrepreneurial. It's sick, Dan, it's sick. But this gives people mental illness. It gives people mental illness.
The thing that I know that gives people mental health issues is feeling that they have no agency in their life, that they can't do anything. Your video where you talk about if you don't have a rich dad, you're screwed. There's no such thing as meritocracy. You're never going to be successful. To me, if I had have come across your content at 19, 20 years old, I would have been screwed. I'm so glad that I came across people who said, Daniel, you weren't born into a rich family. You don't have any bank of mum and dad, but it's cheap and easier than ever to start a business. Start by working for someone who's got a business, then figure out what's your opportunity. And there's a way. There is a way. I'm not saying everyone ends up as a millionaire, and I'm not saying everyone ends up equal, but I'm saying you can make improvements in your life. And the thing that causes mental health issues is the feeling of having no agency or no control over your circumstances until the world changes the whole economic system.
Okay, I kept waiting for him to pause so that I could jump in there. And that was the story. That was the story of our fucking election, right? You've got in the manosphere, everything is still possible. They frame things in the realm of possibility, like you can still, there's still a future for you as young men, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We are living in the reality, and it's shit. It sucks here. It fucking sucks. But no, it's awesome too. You can do really good work. But we know it's an empire in decline. Do you want to know what one of the biggest industries in the manosphere is right now? Gambling. Fucking gambling. Kick is the second largest live streaming platform outside of Twitch, and the people who get banned from Twitch often go to Kick. So like Aiden Ross is on Kick, Sneako's on Kick, right? Yeah, gambling partnerships with Stake, everything else. Stake is a betting company, and sports betting is bigger than ever before, right? They legalized it online and all this other shit. So, I mean, we're literally cultivating a generation of Zin popping fucking gambling addicts who are incel in nature in young men, with robot fuckwives. I don't know. Right. But the story that they get is you could still be somebody. The story that we tell is it's all over. It's kind of over. Not literally, you understand. And this is where Black feminism, I think, is so crucial as a scholarship. I told, I've been talking to my brother more because he doesn't know, but he's like my little guinea pig. He's significantly larger than me. But he's like my guinea pig guy. And he really kind of looks up to me. And I'm very, very fond of him. Like I love the guy. But he drives me fucking nuts. And I said, you're like you talk like you're persecuted by, I said, you have fantasies of persecution. He said, what do you mean? And he got so, irritated with me. And I said, he's like, I just want to know more about the world. Like they're keeping secrets from us. They're keeping secrets from space. Hold on. Sula feels like she needs permission to get on her spot in the bed. No, you don't, honey. Sula, up, go on, up. Go on. Atta girl. And I was just like, he was like, they're keeping information from us. And I said, have you looked for it? And he goes, no. Right. But he knows, right, that there wasn't really a world for him where he made sense, right? Big black dude, no technical skills, doesn't do well in traditional education settings. And if he had come across this shit in the right time, he would be a horrible person, but probably with a few more dollars in his bank account. The the appeal is not something that we can minimize. You know, and he does. He has intellectual pursuits, and you know, but he's all over the place. But now he can jump online and listen to a bunch of guys who are also all over the place tell him about why he's all over the place, and it's because these people are keeping you this way. They don't want men to be men, but they never exactly say what that is, except for the fact that you get to be one. What are we? Right? Like, what do we offer people beyond the ability to, you know, okay, this is where I'm like, I get too loose and whatever. So I'm just going to finish this clip out because we're almost there. Yeah, I was like, there are the threads and I was like, all right, nigga, that's enough.
I've never said don't work hard, okay? When I brought my book out last year, the hardback, I was at some event and I come out, I was drinking in London Bridge. And I come out late, it was like 1 a.m. And some guy come up to me when I was unlocking my bike. He said, oh, I've been watching you on YouTube. This guy started crying. This guy started crying on the street, right, in front of me. He's like, I work so hard, Gary. I work 2 jobs. My mum's sick and I'm trying to help, I'm trying to support and I don't understand why.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that I'm crying, but nobody ever told me that it wasn't my fault before. That's what he said to me, okay? And listen, I believe 100% aspiration, ambition, entrepreneurial spirit. I would never see a kid that has that and say, turn it off, okay? But the flip side of if you just work hard enough, you can make it, is if you didn't make it, it's because you didn't work hard enough and it's your fault. And I would like you to sit and think very hard before you send that message to young men and young women in our society.
Brilliant. A brilliant way to end. You know, that clip and probably, you know, this episode, because I've been yep. But I've been sitting with this, right? I've been sitting with this because he's absolutely right. And he responded very much in the way that we do. But what is it that we are offering people? We have to incentivize the left, right? We have to incentivize it beyond, whoa, it's you're gonna do it, it's the right thing, right? Who do you become? Who do you become at the end of that? Like, you become some fucking rich piece of shit, but you don't, right? We know that they don't. The people who listen and follow, the way the system works is you stay that way, and that's how it happens, right? The ability, and this is what he was talking about, the ability, and we talked about this already, the ability to just fucking sit there for 12 hours a day, 8 hours a day. Hassan Piker is a Nepo baby, right? That might not be our traditional understanding of one, but in that article, I think it was in the New Yorker, you know, they say as much because his uncle is Cenk from the Young Turks, right? He was on that show first. It's the number 1 most watched leftist programming in the country. That's where he starts, right? He comes from money, so when he decides he's going to go out on his own, he can just kind of sit there for that long every single day, right? Mom and dad covering the bills. Very quickly, he becomes that person, I'm sure, right? I hope so. That's typically how the ethnics do it, right? We look out for our own. But there's something missing in the positives, right? Like, I love that we're a place, and we need to do this more, be that soft landing, right? For the trials that people experience in life, and to tell people that it's not their fault, to tell people that we're proud of them. I think we also need to think about what is the story of who you become when you come to our side. I like that. We used to have something like that, like pride in what we were. And if we can't figure this out, then no pride for anyone. No one has pride. Go back to that when I said that. Kill pride. Pride dead forever. Shit. Time. Okay. Really quickly. Really quickly. I want to end on something very fucking dope. Okay. How to defeat these fucking book ban burners, these book burning fucking pieces of shit. Enter Angel of Greenwood. That is a book that was banned. It's a book written by a black woman named Randy Pink. I had to make sure that she was black because that's not a name that I would associate with a black woman. Randy Pink sounds like the name that a white gay man chose for himself. Like, as an OF pseudonym. But anyway, she's good. She's a good part. It's like she's dope. That I just didn't know because I don't know this book. So it's a historical YA fiction novel that centers on the love story of two teens living in the Tulsa neighborhood before the 1921 race massacre, right? The Watchmen is a great piece of work on TV for those of you who are more into the visual storytelling. But the Tulsa race massacre is one of the ugliest moments in American history. And yeah, it's one of those things that they will erase and they don't want you to read about and don't want you to know about. And they killed hundreds of residents and burned more than 1,250 homes and erased years of Black success. So it wasn't just like, oh, we need to live over here and Black people need to live over there. No, anytime Black people saw some success in this country, white people killed them, maimed them, burned them, tore it down, destroyed it, right? Like Black Wall Street, blow it up to smithereens. They were really, really resentful of Black people existing in any capacity. And then you can see the afterlives of that resentment today where white people will consistently vote against their own interests, the interests of their children, the possibility of safety and health in the event that Black people will also benefit from it, even if it's marginally, right? So you have a book here, YA novel, two teens, right, living in the Tulsa neighborhood before the 1921 race massacre, right? So board members in the Pine Richland School Board decide that the book was not at a high enough literary level for high school students. So I look into this, right? So the Pine Richland School Board governs a mid-sized school district, right, in the suburbs of northern Pittsburgh. This book came out in 2021. And it's been in its 9th grade curriculum. And this major meeting happened in January, right? And it was just like a heated debate. So Randy Pink, the author, said, this is her quote, "The residents who reached out said that the district is almost 94% white and that they've had a lot of issues with book restrictions, censorship in the school library, especially the high school library," right? So Pink lives in a small train depot town outside of Birmingham. So she goes on to say, "I had no idea about this, but the teachers at this high school had been lobbying for Angel of Greenwood to replace A Tale of Two Cities on their curriculum for the 9th graders," right? She said it was a year-long fight that she had no idea about. So the justification, again, is that the book's just not at a high enough literary level for high school students. But then why has the book been taught in high schools all over the fucking country? Right? Just say you don't want it there because it makes you upset, makes you feel bad, or whatever the fuck the logic is, right? So, but let's just say that what they're saying is correct, right? Like we choose to treat it as correct, and then we go into the meat and bones of the book. This book is about two 16-year-old Black protagonists who are walking through the streets of like historic Greenwood. This is post-Reconstruction, right? It's a lot of failed promises coming in, but again, right? But you got these two characters in this historic backdrop arguing about how to move forward in their community, which means that in the book, they're debating the philosophies of Du Bois. They're debating fucking Booker T. Washington, right? Oh, but it's not smart enough for 9th graders. That's their logic. Okay. So Pink says that she was unbothered by their board member's opinion, right? She's like, it's written for teens who want to find out what the Greenwood District is, why it's important, and hopefully explore all of the secondary texts mentioned within the primary text. She goes on to say, and then I'm going to do this turn, which is great. If 3 people on the school board in Pine Richland believe the book is not advanced enough for 9th graders, that is their opinion. It has been the subject of book clubs with 60 and 70-year-olds. I'm like, that's right. She goes, I find that explanation to be disingenuous if I'm being honest. I go off, like, for real. So she goes on to say, Pine Richland is, as an example, is an over 90% white community, a very beautiful and lovely community, but insulated. Everybody shops at the same grocery. Everybody goes to the same library, the same church. Everyone has similar backgrounds. So how did they fight back? Right? Macmillan, the publisher of Angel of Greenwood, sent Pine Richland students 100 copies of the book to distribute to the community. Randy Pink, the author of the book, also traveled from her small town outside of Birmingham, Alabama, to come to Richland to meet with the community that had so fiercely supported her work. Students and parents raised nearly $6,000 for her to come to Pennsylvania, where the author held 2 talks, one for students of the school district to ask questions, and the other was open to all community members, right? So the supporters in the community were relentless in making sure that she got there, right? So people put in $5, $10, person even put in $600, right? Randy Pink said that she waived her fee, but the community said, absolutely not. We're going to pay you. Randy said that she's a single mother, so she brought her babies with her, and they said, we're going to pay for all your way. She said, they galvanized around me. I support them very much for that. So Pink, who was initially nervous to come, but was heartened by how the community rallied around her, said, I didn't want to get my supporters in trouble by allowing me to come, she said with a laugh. I know that might sound dystopian, but that's how I felt. In the end, she was heartened because the community, which was so unlike hers, right? This insulated white community, they supported her. So the debate, that fight that happened in January, that was a 5-hour, very ugly meeting, according to the Pittsburgh Gazette. And this is what she said about it. This ugly 5-hour school board meeting was a seed that grew into something really, really beautiful. If more of us are brave enough to step into communities and say, you know what, let's just talk, I think we will get a whole lot further like that in all aspects of society. But for me, this was a fucking win. This was a win. Every time we fight, we win. We choose our fucking battles and we get in there and we fucking win. We fucking win. I'm going to tell you something, right? These people have been, it's very hard to keep power. It's really, really hard to keep power. And we're so focused on Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all this shit. But Moms for Liberty, those fucking cunts were the ones who popularized all the anti-trans shit. But they hyper focus on school curriculums. Those bitches are tired now. Oh, wait, no, use a more neutral term. You already used a misogynist loaded term. Those fucking dickheads, they're going to get tired now. The Trump administration, they're too busy. This is the time where doing that local organizing really, really fucking matters. Anyway, we're here at the end, and I did hear a sneak peek of this voice comment, which is great. I actually encourage you all to send me more. These don't have to be questions. I want to hear your commentary. But I started to listen to this one a bit, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to save the entire thing to listen live on air with you all. Because this person kind of lit me up. Hold on. Let me play this shit. And then we're done. Oh, you're really taking your time here. I think I got to refresh the page. Hold on. Yeah, let me refresh the page. That was anticlimactic. That's a list of things. Here we go.
Hey, this is Alexis. I live in Los Angeles. I am calling just to comment, I guess. I just heard your last podcast yesterday, and I was like actually engaged the whole time, and however long it was an hour and 48 minutes or something like that. And I looked at it at first and I was like, wow, that's a long podcast. Maybe there's a guest or something. And there was no guest. It was just you talking. But I listened to the whole thing. I did get to the end, actually. And I thought it was funny because at the end, or actually throughout the podcast, but you were like, I'm talking too much. I'm yapping all the time. But I didn't notice until you said multiple times how much you were yapping. Like,
hold on. Okay, hold on, Alexis, you can't send a comment and then read me for filth. Oh my God. But like literally so true. I said it so many times. I think I said it a couple times this episode. Okay, I really should have listened to this the whole way through. Oh my God. Well, why don't we just let it continue? Oh, weird. It froze. Am I having an internet problem? Something's been weird with the media here. Hold on. I'm going to refresh it again. And then we're at the 50-second
hey,
mark. So
this is Alexis.
on.
Engagement was super high and I loved it. So I don't know. The only thing was you saying that you were yapping too much, which I don't think you were. And even if you were, I don't think you need to point it out. I just thought about it too, because Huberman or whatever, he talks, his podcasts are 3 hours long. And I always look at that and I think, how the hell are people listening to this guy for 3 hours? But people do. I know guys that I know who listen to him for 3 hours. And then I went and looked, and Joe Rogan's podcasts, those are like 2 hours and 45 minutes, 3 hours. Same thing. So I don't know. Maybe people really like this like long-term listening. But I don't know. I don't know if you're finding that people are dropping off at a certain time. Are you losing followers because your podcasts are getting longer?
More people are listening, actually.
As your podcasts have gotten longer, actually, I have enjoyed them more. And it's sustained my attention. So in this attention economy that we have where people like drop off after 30 seconds, I do think it's so nice to find people that you appreciate what they're saying and you agree, and maybe sometimes you disagree, and it's entertaining, and you have all of those things in your podcast. And I am sending this voice message just to tell you that, and maybe you won't hear this. I hope you will.
I did.
So that's all. I don't have any questions, but appreciate your podcast. And I must have missed the time when you switched the name over again to Dark Woke. So I don't know when that happened, but all good. And thank you. I'll be listening in soon. And I'm taking actually another minute to add an addendum onto this voice note. Don't apologize for your long podcasts. That's all I want to say. Don't apologize. It's better when you don't. Be that little guy. Be that big guy. Be the person who's just like, they've captured my attention. That's all. That's all I have to say. Love you. Bye.
Not Alexis being like, whatever little imposter shit you got, throw it out. It's true. I'm a little guy with a lot of words. Okay. I accept. I hear you, and I accept. I will stop apologizing. It's true. I've got nothing but positive feedback about the length change, and honestly, a lot of people have said that they've actually been able to get more out of it, and sort of live in it more. And the whole point was to like really grapple and laugh together and get pissed off together and find the wins together, but mainly it was just to crack through this fucking lonely life, and to remind you that your life has real fucking value and real fucking meaning. And if it didn't, everything in this world, or a lot of things anyway, wouldn't be trying to fucking destroy those brilliant, beautiful parts. So I accept. And honestly, I want more of this, more comments, More comments, more. Oh shit, this episode's supposed to be up in a second. All right, let me. All right, this is it. Okay, here we go. This is it. Yes, great comment and heard. Damn, you came for me in a loving way. I love it, and I want more. Okay, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to Dark Woke. It means the world to me. The show really is a labor of love. We got new episodes dropping all the time, available everywhere podcasts are. Don't forget that we are self-funded. So if you love the show, please feel free to support it as best you can. We're at patreon.com/darkwoke. Don't forget, I want to hear from you. Drop your voice note questions to darkwokejfk@gmail.com. But not just your questions, I also want your comments. Anything that's going on in your head, I want to know. All right. Just lastly, shout out to you, the listeners that make it all possible. Love you. Peace.